people that mock God. God is just a fairy tale.
You happy and fine, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Not even God can sink my ship.
Coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Chico, cuénteme.
¿Qué hizo? ¿Era con quién está hablando ahí?
Ay, ¿con quién estoy hablando?
Sí, ¿con quién está hablando ahí luego usted?
Con una propietaria de la casa 125.
Marica, la propietaria de la casa 125 falleció hace como unos 20 días, marica.
No, ¿cómo así? ¿Qué me está diciendo?
Sí, no, usted está hablando ahí solo, marica, lo estoy viendo aquí por la cámara, usted está hablando ahí solo.
Uy, no, ¿cómo a mierda, loco?
Who are you?
Just a guy. Just a guy.
Tell me in a sentence who you are.
This woman melted into her couch after her parents neglected her for over 12 years. On January 3rd, 2022, 36-year-old Lacey Fletcher was found naked and deceased on her parents' couch in Slaughter, Louisiana. Lacey had extreme social anxiety, severe autism, Asperger's, and other mental health issues. She attended Brownfield Baptist Academy up until the 9th grade, and then she was transitioned into homeschooling. Lacey's parents, Sheila Fletcher and Clay Fletcher, were her legal caretakers, but they literally watched as their daughter was dying. Lacey was left to melt and rot into her couch for years until she passed away. She was only 96 pounds when she was found, and she was covered in feces, urine, maggots, and insect bites. Her hair was knotted, matted, and filled with maggots, while fecal matter was all over her face and body. Lacey's bottom had ulcers and bacterial infection from all the urine and feces that was left there for who knows how long. The couch eventually began to melt away along with her skin, which then created this hole. Lacey's cause of death was from severe medical neglect, which led to chronic malnutrition, acute starvation, immobility, acute ulcer formation, and osteomyelitis, which led to sepsis. An investigator mentioned that the crime scene was so disturbing that he was unable to eat and he cried for a whole week. Sheila and Clay Fletcher insisted that Lacey chose to never leave the couch, but they were still arrested on Monday, May 2nd, 2022. They've been indicted in second-degree murder charges and may get life in prison with no parole if they are convicted. I literally felt sick to my stomach after learning about this case. Have you guys heard of it?
This schoolboy stabbed his teacher to death in front of a classroom full of students. 61-year-old Anne Maguire was a Spanish teacher teaching in Leeds. She'd actually worked at the school for 40 years and she was only 5 months off retirement. However, in April 2014, something absolutely horrific happened. One of her students was 15-year-old Will Cornick. He'd always been described as a smart student who never really caused any trouble. Classmates regarded him as a polite student, but after he got diagnosed with diabetes, his personality seemed to change. In 2013, he tried to join the army, but because of his diagnosis, he was rejected. Being in the army had been his dream, so this was really upsetting for him. After failing to complete his Spanish homework, he was given detention by Anne. He also expressed a wish to her that he wanted to drop Spanish, but she wouldn't let him, which only angered him more. He began to develop a deep-rooted grudge against Anne. Shockingly, he reportedly messaged his friends on Facebook asking if one of them would kill her for him for £10. During one school day, halfway through his Spanish class, Will decided to get up and attack Anne with a knife. The classmates watched on in horror as he chased her out of the classroom. When there, another teacher heard her screams and tried to shield Anne from any more blows from him. Will then allegedly returned to his class and told his classmates how it was a shame that he hadn't killed her. However, Anne did actually pass away from her injuries. Will later admitted that he did plan also to kill 2 other teachers. One of them was actually pregnant at the time. He's been sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 20 years.
This game needs 2 people to play, and like with a lot of these games, one person has to close their eyes and relax. You tell that person to count to 10 in their head and then nod. Then you take their arms and move them up and down, above and below each other. So I'm gonna kind of try and demonstrate. Basically, you would take their arms like this and move them up and down. You do that 10 times. You then repeat that whole process, but moving their arms 5 times. Then you do it again 7 times, and then once more 3 times. Click your fingers next to their ears 3 times, and then tell them to repeat after you. Dead man, take me to your grave and kill me. The person with their eyes closed will then start repeating this phrase until their arms start lifting up on their own. And that's it, a ritual game that's supposed to make your arms move by themselves. Is this game dangerous? I haven't found any reports saying that it is, so it's probably one of the safer ones. But please be careful anyway, and as always, play at your own risk.
If you can solve this mystery, you might be able to work for the FBI. A woman was working late at the office when she received a phone call. When she answered, it was the police on the other end. They informed her that her husband had been in an accident. He didn't make it and she had to go identify the body. She was in shock as the police told her this. They requested she goes to the crime scene as soon as possible. 15 minutes later, she pulls up at the scene of the crime, only to be arrested by police for the murder of her own husband. But the real question here is, how did the police know it was her that committed the crime? Let me know in the comments if you can solve this mystery and then send it to a friend.
After 65 long years, the identity of the boy in the box has officially been confirmed. On February 25, 1957, a little boy between the ages of 3 and 7 was found murdered and stuffed inside of a bassinet box on the side of the road in Pennsylvania. He had been wrapped in a plaid blanket, was malnourished, and had suffered extreme physical abuse prior to his death. His cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma, but the odd part is that he appeared to be clean and freshly groomed with a haircut and even had trimmed fingernails. Authorities took the boy's fingerprints and discovered a lot of clues left behind at the crime scene. And soon the case gained massive media attention, so investigators truly believed that his murder and identity would soon be solved. But instead, the case went cold for over 6 decades. No one knew the identity of this poor little boy, and when he was officially buried, his tombstone read, "America's Unknown Child." But as of yesterday, November 30th, 2022, police sources in Philadelphia have officially confirmed that they now know who he is. With advances in DNA analysis and being cross-referenced with genealogical information, a DNA profile was successfully developed and was traced to a, quote, prominent family in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, end quote. From that, authorities were able to track down the little boy's birth certificate and have announced that as early as next week, they will be able to release the little boy's name to the public. I'm assuming they have to wait in order to notify the family. But even though the little boy's identity has been confirmed, the murder itself is still unsolved. The case is still open, and according to authorities, criminal charges could still be filed. There have been many theories as to what could have happened to the little boy, but there have been 2 that kind of stuck around. The first theory is that the little boy lived in a foster home that was located about 1.5 miles from where his body was found. Upon searching the foster home during an estate sale, authorities found that they were selling a similar bassinet that would have came in the box that the little boy was found in. Authorities also discovered similar blankets to what the little boy was wrapped in, hanging from a clothesline at the foster home. But all of this evidence was circumstantial, so authorities closed the investigation into the foster home in 1998. The second theory came from a woman named Martha who, in 2002, claimed that her abusive mom purchased the little boy in 1954. Martha claimed that he was subjected to extreme abuse, and on the night he died, he had thrown up his meal of baked beans before being beaten and given a bath where he eventually died. This claim matched information only known to the police, as the coroner confirmed the little boy's stomach contained baked beans. Also that his fingers had been water wrinkled. Ultimately, though, police were unable to verify her story and deemed it unreliable, as the woman had a history of mental illness. Even though it's been 65 years, we are one step closer to getting full justice for this little boy. and he officially will no longer be known as America's unknown child.
This is Pam Reynolds. She died on the operating table for an entire hour. And while she was gone, she had one of the most bizarre near-death experiences ever recorded. In 1991, she suffered from a severe brain aneurysm and underwent a surgery that was almost certain to kill her. While in surgery, she was clinically dead for 60 minutes in a state of stasis. This is when the body is drained of its blood, the heart is stopped, and the brain ceases all neural activity. While in this state, Dr. Robert Spetzler was able to successfully mend the brain aneurysm, and she regained consciousness shortly after. Upon her awakening, what she told doctors and nurses completely baffled them. It was impossible. She said she was above herself and the surgery as it happened. She was able to recall and quote what the doctors and nurses were saying and doing. While in the state, Pam also said that she recalled a presence of pure light beside her, but she didn't know who or what it was. Before the surgery, Pam said her final words and goodbyes to her loved ones in case she didn't make it. But during her experience, she said that she had no desire to re-enter her body. She knew her kids would be fine and she really did not want to come back. But something told her that she had to, and it simply wasn't her time. After this experience, Pam no longer feared death and scoffed at any mention of the matter. Her doctor, Robert F. Spitzler of the Barrow Neurological Institute, was absolutely in shock at the things that she told him, saying there was zero possibility of brain activity during this procedure. They had all sorts of equipment to monitor heart and brain activity. They would have noticed even a microscopic amount of neurons firing. Pam Reynolds would pass away at the age of 53 in 2010, nearly 20 years after her experience. She left behind an incredible story, one that, in my opinion, proves that there's life after death.
Concentrate is a creepy game that shows you how you're going to die. One person closes their eyes, while another sits or stands behind them. The person behind recites a poem, whilst performing the actions. This poem is very long, so if you want to give this a go, then I'll let you look it up for yourselves. Just Google the Concentrate game and you'll find it. Now, at the end of this little ritual, the person in front will see a colour when they open their eyes. The colour that you see supposedly represents how you're going to die. For example, blue represents drowning, white represents dying of old age and going to heaven, and there are a bunch of others. I very vaguely remember playing this as a child, but is this something that you would ever try, or maybe you already have?
Here's how you could survive Minecraft mobs if they were real. First up, we've got the Creeper. This four-legged entity is one of the most dangerous in the Minecraft world, as its body contains up to 50% more gunpowder than a generic block of TNT. In-game, the easiest way to defeat this mob is to wait for it to ignite and then get out of its blast radius as soon as possible. However, this can be rather risky. If you encounter it in real life, I'd recommend using ranged weapons or simply giving it space. If you don't go looking for trouble, you have a better chance at staying alive. And speaking of ranged attacks, next up we have Skeleton. Despite being armed, I actually believe that this mob wouldn't be all that difficult to defeat in real life. All you have to do is aim for its joints and the rest of its body will naturally collapse. Or just hit it with your car. It's using primitive weaponry, and this is the modern era. Finally, we have the classic Zombie. This entity is slow, weak, and incapable of entering closed buildings. This entity is only really dangerous because of its ability to infect its victims and create new mobs, so as long as you take care of it quickly, you shouldn't have a problem. Comment which mob you think would be the most dangerous in real life, and follow for more.
Can you please talk about Nevada urban legends? I got you. Let's talk about the haunted water babies from Nevada. Also, TikTok's green screen is not working, so I'm going to improvise. These creepy things right here are the Pyramid Lake water babies. This is Pyramid Lake specifically. As you can see, it looks just like a pyramid. And this area is said to be extremely haunted. These water babies will mimic the sound of crying babies to lure people in to try to help them. And when they get close, they snatch them up and the people are never to be seen again. The way this curse came about is theorized in two different ways. One theory states that the tribe that lived around this area threw malformed babies into the lake to preserve the strength of the tribe. The other theory associated with this legend says that a tribesman fell in love with a mermaid, brought her back to the village, and they didn't accept her. Because they didn't accept her, she cursed the entire area. And with the curse came these dangerous spirits of the water babies that would lure people into the water and end them. So if you're in Nevada and you hear crying around a body of water, double check that. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section below, or what you want to see next.
You want to know what's funny, but not like haha funny? For all the jokes they get, the biggest problems in Australia are the ones that aren't supposed to be there. Like, did you know there's a rampant feral camel problem down there right now? It's exactly what it sounds like. So a bunch of camels were airdropped from British India and Afghanistan way back when for like transportation and stuff. Well, the camels started cameling and nobody was about to stop them. Because me personally, I don't have the tools to block a camel, and I'm sure you don't either. And around the 1920s, people started using cars, so the camels pretty much got abandoned. But like, one does not simply abandon camels and not see consequences. The consequences were that in the 70s, there were an estimated 20,000 feral camels in Australia. Today, that number's escalated to... that is a comma. About 1 million, give or take, probably give. The government did say it was on site with the desert donkeys, but it's the same country that lost the war to an overgrown, undercooked drumstick. Not only are these camels raising farmers' blood pressures, some of these camels will pull up pipes and destroy toilet blocks. Because again, who gonna stop them? Sometimes they get attracted to the moisture in AC units and attempt to break into houses. One time a herd of 6,000 pulled up on a small town of about 300 people looking for water. Cause only in Australia would the chances of being jumped by a pack of sand llamas over a glass of Poland Springs have the audacity to not be zero.
If you see him while you're awake, run. So this story actually comes from a Reddit user who's a therapist. And this user had a patient who was coming in complaining of seeing Hatman at night. This patient would apparently wake up in the middle of the night to see Hatman standing at the foot of their bed, watching them sleep. And as a result, they were not really sleeping much. So the therapist prescribed some pretty heavy sleeping medication, and as a result, the patient starts getting a little better. But then one day, the patient comes in and just looks like they had seen a ghost. So the therapist asked them what was wrong, and they said that as they were getting in the car to come to therapy, they saw Hatman standing across the street during the day. This therapist had only ever heard of Hatman when it came to patients waking up in the middle of the night and seeing him, never when they were already awake doing things in the middle of the day. So the patient is terrified, but the therapist thinks this might be a side effect of the medication. It takes a little while to get used to. But that was the last time the patient ever came to see the therapist.
The world lost their shit for a little bit when this video came out. Comes from Fresno, California in 2007 after a man installed security cameras in his front lawn. He said the dogs were going crazy at night in the past few days and he wanted to capture what it was they were barking at. When he woke up the next morning to check the cameras, he was actually disturbed. The video shows these two things walking across his front lawn. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, maybe a kid with a sheet on his head, until you realize that the first being walking across the screen is as thin as the tree in the left corner, and neither of these kids appear to have shoulders. This video sparked the craze of the Fresno Nightcrawlers. Even a show called Fact or Faked Paranormal Files attempted to debunk this video.
Cryptoids or Bigfoot or anything else we've seen before.
Look, you can almost see the little legs at the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can see its shadow as well. It's very long. Notice that it has a head.
I've never seen anything like this before.
Yeah, me neither.
Oh, what's this one coming in here?
Oh my goodness! What's he doing?
Anatomically speaking, I've never seen anything that looks like either of these figures before.
They were unsuccessful in doing so. They said when they actually stood in the front lawn of this house that they realized the proportions of these things was just unearthly. For years, people have been trying to figure out what the hell these things are. Nobody knows.
Is this man possessed?
Un midazolam con haloperidol. Sí, que te la ofrecen con haloperidol.
Real life curses that took lives. Okay, so you're not supposed to look at this photo for too long, and I'll explain why. This untitled piece is made by Zdzisław Beksiński. He was a Polish painter and had a very dark style of dystopian surrealism. Beksiński had an obsession with death, and he displayed it in the majority of his paintings, and it's said that death shortly became very obsessed with him as well. This is because in 1998, Beksiński lost his wife tragically to cancer, and only a year later, his son would take his own life. So it's safe to assume that his life was filled with so much negative energy, hence all of his paintings. It's said that his negative energy transferred to the paintings because apparently when you look at the painting for too long, it not only gives off an eerie feeling, but may actually bring you closer to death. And that's exactly what happened to the artist Beksiński, because in 2005, he was found with 17 stab wounds, all because of an argument about $100. Scary stuff, right?
spooky game played by children, you need at least 2 people to play this. So one person, the storyteller, sits down on the floor, whilst another person lays down with their head in the storyteller's lap. If there are other people, then they should sit around you in a circle. The storyteller rubs the temples of the person laying down whilst telling them a story about a cat. An example could be something like this. There was a lady who had a pet cat. The cat was lovely, but one day it got hit by a car and died. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. The lady got a new cat. This cat was very nasty. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. One day, that cat got hit by a car and died. The lady didn't get any more cats. Cat scratch, cat scratch, cat scratch. So that's just an example, but you can obviously make up your own story. The person laying down quickly gets up, and on their back there should be red claw marks that appear. This game is very similar to a game that I used to play when I was younger called Hatman. I have also done a video on that if you want to go check that out.